So this video is going to be basically a start to finish video of my process and how I sort of approach drawing. And so it's also kind of a Krita tutorial in a way, I guess. How I usually start my drawings is I go new file and I pick my sort of aspect. So I usually go with what's basically a A4 600 PPI. I don't really know what that stands for. So I put it at 300 PPI because websites like Imprint, for example, can't have a resolution that's higher than that. I think it's just the maximum amount to make the images look good without them being I don't know, too overbearing. So that's what I go with. With Krita you can basically make a custom sort of aspect ratio. So what I did was I went like that and changed the PPI to 300, and then I changed the name to Oyasumiri, and then I clicked save here. I'm not going to save it again, of course, because I've already got that. So yeah, I'm going to do it in portrait, and I could do it in landscape, but I find portraits easier to have a reference image because then there's more space on my screen. So here's my canvas. I'll just show you something real quick. Content, on this content tab, so we've got the dimensions and the content tab, and you can choose how many layers you can have. You can choose what you're going to name your file, which I actually didn't do. I don't actually usually do that. And you can choose what color your canvas starts off as. So yeah, I usually go with a sort of papery shade just because that's the most inspiring page, because I think staring at a white page is the least inspiring thing to make me draw. So I feel I don't know, paper shades are more likely to, I just made another file. Paper shades are more likely to make me want to draw something. Okay, so I've got all these tool options open. So when you open Krita, often it'll have just your basic stuff. I've also got my animation tools and all this stuff. I actually don't use these tabs down here very much, but so I've got these ones. The weighted one I think is a really important one because that's basically how smooth your brush strokes are going to be. So I've got this, and then if less weighted, it's sort of you know, quicker, more sensitive. And then I usually have it higher up, just because it makes for a smoother sort of line. Yeah, so I just pressed the delete button to clear my canvas. Yeah, so my drawing process basically starts out with me finding a reference image. So usually I go to Pinterest to do that, just because Pinterest is probably one of the most useful programs for finding images without having to follow a bunch of random things, you know? It basically gives you suggestions based on things that you've looked up and saved to your boards. So yeah, there's some really good, I often get my reference images off of here. As you can see, it's already giving me sort of suggestions that would work well. A lot of women, because I draw a lot of women. Yeah. So I might just go with something simple. Maybe just, yeah, I'll just go with this one. Makes it easier. So I'm just gonna save this to my downloads folder. I really like her sort of wispy bangs, they're nice. So I'm just saving it to my downloads folder because I am unorganized as hell. And I'll go to my downloads folder. So my computer runs on Linux, so it does look a bit weird, but yeah. Ignore those pictures of Louis through. So we're gonna go insert as reference image. So that just we've got this little pin symbol over here. That's what you select to move around your reference images. So I'm just gonna, yeah, make that a reasonable size. And there. And I'm gonna save my file now. So I'm just gonna put it in the new style folder because that's my go-to, and so this will be just called whatever, and then yeah, so with Krita, it's really important to make sure that you've saved your file before you start doing pretty much anything, because Krita is like a very sort of unbalanced program. It crashes a lot, yeah, especially if you're like doing any cutting and pasting using these like little symbols down here. Cutting and pasting is one thing that Krita does not handle well often, so I find it good to save after you've cut or pasted anything. So yeah, just a little tip there. So I'm going to start my sketch off using the pencil, just because, you know, pencils are the easiest thing to sketch with, and it's sort of like what you start learning to draw with, so it makes it sort of easier. So if I zoom in here on my pencil sketch, you can see it's got this very sketchy sort of line, which is really nice. So I'm going to start off by just getting a general feel of the sort of general shape of this girl. So I'm just gonna, you can use any pen as an eraser, but the pencil one doesn't work very well. So usually I just like, if I'm using a normal like thick pen, then I'll just use the eraser button, but if I'm using a pencil, then I just prefer to just use one of these erasers. Okay, so that's like a sort of good general sketch, and then I'll add some facial features, or you can actually see her nostrils. It's good to mark whether or not you can see nostrils, because otherwise you end up drawing nostrils when actually the angle of the nose isn't showing you any. So yeah, she's got a little pout and a lip ring. I don't always add in all the features of the reference when I'm drawing from a reference, but you know, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Okay, her head's actually a little more pointed than this. And then add some brows. Okay, so that's like a general sketch, and then next step will be to do the actual outline of the drawing. So this is usually the part where I change the most, because the sketch usually just gives me something very basic to go off of. So I usually just decide a pen based on what vibe I want to go with in the drawing. So with this one I think I might actually go with this pen. So this one is, it's sort of got this very wispy sort of vibe to it, which I really dig. I just drew on the same layer as my sketch. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to put the sketch like way low in visibility. So the opacity is basically like the easiest, most useful tool in my opinion. So yeah, it's great for layering on like different shades of skin and stuff. So now I'm just gonna like ignore the reference image from here on and sort of do my own thing. Might actually draw using a sort of different tone, like a skin tone. find these are a really useful way to make wrinkles in clothing, is to just do little slashes like that. I think I just picked that up from some random artist. So yeah. Let's see how this is going along. So it's sort of looking like a person, which is nice, and I've got the body shape slightly different to the body shape of the person in the image. I think that's just because the shirt is sort of billowing out more in the actual image, and I might make it billow out a little more in mine as well. I find with Krita often the undo button gets a bit stuck, so you have to kind of mash it a bit. Like, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work, which is kind of annoying. But it's free software, you know, so you can't really expect highly. I mean, it's pretty good for free software. That's my hot take. You can see this brush does make a lot of little wispy lines, because it's a very sort of sensitive brush. Like, just slightly resting my pen on the paper. I'm not even touching my touchpad just then, and it's still making lines. So yeah, it's very sensitive. Some pens aren't like that, some are. I always forget which ones are and aren't. So basically just play around and see which ones you like best. Like, the wispy thing doesn't always matter, because like half the time people can't zoom in that closely on your image anyway. So I'm quite actually liking how this is turning out. Yeah, it's always good when you like how your art's turning out. I think that's something that often comes with practice though, like, it's good to focus on the little things if you're not like experienced very much in arts. Focus on the little things that you're proud of, and then like improve on the things that you aren't so proud of. Just redrawing the eyes. Redrawing is like my thing. I always redraw pretty much everything. I'm pretty sure that's every artist's thing, especially digital artists. Everyone just redraws and redraws and redraws. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of this little stylistic choice. Yeah, this is looking pretty alright. Okay, I might actually move the mouth up a bit. So, gently select that bad boy. And then what I do, because my program's being a bit iffy recently, I just let it do that and then save. Because if it's like selected while if I have it selected like this and then I press save, the program has been crashing, which is really annoying, because then I don't know, like, I don't remember when I'd previously saved. So yeah, Okay. Okay, I'm actually gonna shorten this neck because it's just freaking me out a bit. I might actually do some color using one of these water brushes. So these ones are basically brushes that you can alter like an actual material, which is what I like about them. So it's just like using watercolor pretty much. So yeah, you can smudge them using the brush. So basically with this one, if you press down, it gives you the solid color, and then if you lightly go over it, it allows you to smudge that like color, which is pretty cool if you ask me. Okay, so now that that's done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on this layer. So this is the layer that's underneath my outline layer, and I've also already hidden so this little eyeball thing right next to the layer is how you hide things, right? So I've already hidden the sketch layer. So I'm going to actually go group and quick group it, and then I'm going to make another layer and press this little A thing. So that's basically alpha, inherent alpha. So that basically means that if I go with another color over this, it's pretty cool. It only colors in the stuff that's in this layer beneath it. So yeah, that makes it a lot easier for basically doing any sort of color. So with the outline layer, I'm going to put it into multiply. I'm going to go back to my little watercolor brush. I really like this one. It's actually slightly customized. Okay, so now to get into the coloring, I'm gonna just go from this shade, go down a bit, and then pick, so this is the main skin tone, and for the eyes I'm gonna just go a little lighter than that, and so these will be the eyeballs. Might just blend this in a little bit more. So we've also got these blending brushes up here. So this one sort of adds a very foggy sort of smudge, and then this one's like a more solid smudge. And I often like the solid smudge better because it sort of like adds a bit more of maybe even an oil paint sort of effect. Okay, if I want to add more texture to this hair, I'm going to go back in with another brush, I think. I'm just kind of giving the hair shape. Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chop up her hair. Because hair is just really a whole bunch of strands, right? So if I make it so blocky, then it doesn't really look like hair. So that actually looks nice and fluid now. I'll chop up the top too a little bit. Okay. Next I'm gonna do her clothing, and I might actually have to do that above the skin layer too, like the shading layer. Just because of how I've done the arms, it's like touching the shirt. Okay, so I'm going to color in the shirt now. So actually, if you can see, like, it won't let me color in that spot there, which means that in this layer I didn't color it in properly. So I can do that though. So there we've got her black shirt. I might actually drop the opacity. And I will go into our outline and change it back to multiply, so then you can actually see the lines better. I might put something on her shirt. I need to decide what I'm going to do in the background. Now, I've done sort of faded colors throughout this whole thing. That's kind of like the whole vibe. So we're going to go behind everything. Thoughts and prayers. You know what, maybe I'll just dabble into some of these funky tools. So I usually do add a border just because it makes it look nicer. So I add the border over the top of everything else. Always, always sign your work.